Hello, Jackie. How are you?
Good evening, Dr. Miles. I'm well, and yourself?
Hey, it's going great. We're gonna get started. It's about 7 o'clock, and because you talk so much on these programs, we always run out of time. So I'm gonna get started so we can give you plenty of time. What
That's
happened?
really cute, Dr. Miles.
So we give you. Are you situated? Oh, so we can give you plenty of time to talk tonight. Because you always talk so much, Jackie, that it runs out of time.
Well, it is a good topic tonight, so I might need some time.
I'm the quiet one on here. I'm the quiet on here. But first of all, I want to welcome everybody, Jackie, to both Instagram, our Let's Talk About It, and also on Facebook Live. This week, the participants will only be able to see us on Facebook Live if they're going to our Facebook page. Last week, they were on my personal page, I think. So, but this week, they're on our actual Miles Children at Facebook. All right. So let's get started. But Jackie, in Atlanta, it was 91 degrees today.
Oh my!
91 degrees.
The sunny state.
Yeah,
Sunshine state with that.
So what's happening in South Florida?
Well, everyone's gearing up for Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
For starters, expecting a lot of visitors.
Yeah.
But the weather's a bit overcast, and of course, we are starting to prepare for hurricane season.
Oh, that's right. That is correct. That is correct. I forgot those days. And I know what that means also. Headed to buy lumber and all other kind of things.
All sorts of things.
Oh, anxiety goes up and so forth. But I weathered it there for 30 years. And so you've been there probably just as long.
About that long.
So Jackie, I also want to make maybe I should introduce myself first of all and then get started. I'm Dr. Willie Miles. I'm the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation located in Atlanta, Georgia. And our purpose, our mission statement is simply to make children our priority. And I'm just really excited about the number of things that we're doing, not only in the Atlanta area, but throughout the country, Jackie.
Yes. And I think that is important, Dr. Miles. The reach is certainly expanding. I'm Jacqueline Hampton Clements, an educator in South Florida and the originator of Valley of the Giants curriculum and programs.
Excellent. Jackie, tell us a little bit more about that. Can you tell us about what you do?
Yes, so Valley of the Giants is a program, it's actually a conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion that initiates a conversation with middle and high school, actually elementary through high school students about historically Black organizations and institutions. For the most part, we feel like those are hidden, and this is information that children should start receiving in kindergarten and certainly all the way through high school so that these are resources they can take advantage of in life.
Excellent. So, folks, if you're looking for consultants or speakers, Jackie's the one you need to call to give you really a bird's eye view on what's happening in our educational system. And many of you all who attended our summit also actually had a chance to hear Jackie in the workshop, and her participants said it was absolutely awesome, and I have no doubt about it. So, folks, if you're looking for educational reform, if you're looking for new paradigms on curriculum, if you're looking for new ways of educating our children, because evidently some of the old ways not working, please let us know. We'll hook her up with you all. Jackie, I want to say this before I get started because it's almost distracting me. I put this shirt on to represent summer, but it's almost too bright for me. But I'm gonna make it through this program.
But you know what? Orange is the color of the season, so
really?
You are in fashion.
All right,
yes,
I knew it.
You know what? A man shows confidence when he can be a little bold. So
there
I think they look nice.
There you go. Thank you. Jackie, I want to mention also that we're preparing for Memorial Day weekend, and we want to advise everyone to be safe. Now, Jackie, I know we do these workshops or these sessions every week, these broadcasts. But next week we're not doing this because we end a series.
Yes,
we end a series.
Break between series. This one has been phenomenal, so we're looking forward to our little break and then getting back to some more information, especially as people prepare to put kids back in school this fall.
Exactly. And we're very excited about all of this. Jackie, I want to mention also that June 1st through June 30th is our annual giving campaign, the foundation's annual giving. And what we're doing, we're asking each of you all to ask somebody to make a donation to us. You go to our webpage, there is a donate tab there, and just give as much money as you like. As much money as you like. We have no restrictions on it. And Jackie, I want to mention also that something our audience is going to see very soon, probably starting on the 1st, are young people, not young anymore, people who I've helped throughout the years who are now professionals and who didn't start out that way. And some of them thought they could not make
Dr.
it.
Miles alumni, yes.
Yes, called Dr. Willie Miles Alumni. And they will be actually joining us. We'll be having some of them on during our broadcast. All right, so I'm really excited about that. Really excited about that. Okay,
right, Dr. Miles, that's significant because these are, people who were in the shoes of those we often speak to now. So I think hearing from them is going to be phenomenal.
Exactly. So we invite all of y'all to give. And not only that, we invite all of y'all to become alumni of Dr. Willie Miles. Well, we're very excited about that.
And Dr. Miles, you didn't mention this, but I want to add,
sure.
We have an ongoing giving campaign. And I want to say to all our listeners, you'll be surprised how small amounts add up. You might do a $10 a month, you might do a $20, you may do a $30 or a $50, but just setting up that ongoing contribution has major impact and really does allow us to expand our reach in services.
Jackie, it's kind of amazing when we do these kind of broadcasts, folks think they're free. Now, I guess if every Joe Blow does them, it doesn't cost them anything, but we have to pay for what? The flyers to be made. We pay for a production crew. We actually pay for like all the programs to make sure these things are sent out to you on numerous occasions. So there are costs associated with this. And folks, I'm sorry, Jackie.
And don't forget the community giving that is also a part of this. So that's where the bulk of your donations go, to our community giving. We are going into the third quarter, looking at what we're going to be doing as we wrap up the second quarter. So we all have another community campaign out there. So your funds really do support community as well as very important education.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we are talking about going back to school, giving money to other donations, other companies for getting book bags. Also during Thanksgiving holidays, we have the food giveaway. During Christmas, we gave away gift cards to those who did not work last year. And we gave about, I think, over a couple $1,000s away worth of those gift cards. So we're just very excited. We're excited to give, folks, because we realize to whom much is given. Who want to finish it up for me?
Much is required.
Much is required. Much is required. Now, Jackie, you said you were going to talk so much. Now, you're talking so much already, right? But Jackie, I am really excited about this topic tonight.
Well, I'm a little afraid of the topic tonight, Dr. Miles, because this is very common. So,
well, it has to be said. I have some things that I want to add to it, and it's talking about parents who use their children as pawns, and that it sounds so barbaric, first of all. But the reality is that it does occur, Jackie. It does occur.
Right. And the most dangerous part, I think, is those who don't even realize they're doing it when
right.
they let their personal feelings and their feelings about former, partners and spouses cross over into how they parent their children. It just has some serious consequences.
Well, Jackie, I'm going to say something even more, a little bit more broader, and that I'm looking at my live stream from Facebook, and I'm going side to side. We're going to eventually get these cameras where they can look at me. I can look straight ahead. But
right.
Jackie, I was thinking about this today, and I thought about parents who just work with me, who pimp their children.
It's an ugly word, but it happens all the time.
Jackie, people are pimping their children. And some people are going to be accepting. Dr. Miles, what are you talking about pimping? But Jackie, pimping is anything or body you put up front to sell and you want to get something from it.
Yeah. Using your children to get something for your own personal reasons. And I'll add to that, Dr. Miles. It's not always something beneficial. Sometimes it's just revenge. It's not money. It's not books for the kids. It's just a personal revenge. So yes, that is an appropriate term.
It is an appropriate term. And there are other diagnostic terms we can use for it, which we will. But let's talk about the people and some reasons why people use their children as pawns. And we're not condoning it. We're simply giving information.
Right.
We're just providing information. Right. And hopefully, Jackie, to provide a different perspective to parents.
Always about awareness and putting children first. And so that's what we hope comes out of these conversations today. So as you know, Dr. Miles, one of the biggest situations under which children are pimped is during divorce, when people are separating or divorcing.
That is a very difficult time for children. Adults think it's very difficult for them. but it's a really difficult time for children. And Jackie, as we talk about this evening, we're going to talk about the mental health effects on children.
Right.
How it bothers them. And Jackie, not just, we did a program before on divorce, but we're going to talk about how the divorce and now pimping your children makes it 10 times worse.
Yep, through that divorce process.
Right.
And there are so many ways, so many different ways to do that, Dr. Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You go from alimony to custody to, youth activities and the things that children do. And
Right.
the worst, which, I know we're going to touch on, but the worst is when they say negative things about the other parent or encourage their children to think negatively and sometimes behave negatively towards the other parent.
What's so amazing is that when people go through the divorces, the data shows that usually it's going to be the mothers who began to be less supportive and less affectionate to their children after the divorce.
Wow.
After the
That's
divorce.
Surprising.
And
Okay.
so what's amazing, it says that even the adult's discipline, the mother's discipline, becomes less consistent and less effective. And
Wow.
I can kind of understand why that happens, because it's the fighting, it's the tiredness, and also trying to make sure that she's trying to be mom and dad,
Right.
and she don't want to come across too mean because the kids have already gone through trauma. I get it. I get it. But the problem that poses is that is not, quote unquote, normal for the children. Are you with me?
Yes. And often we don't seek what you and I advise all the time, which is therapy.
Yes.
Get some help. A lot of times parents are dealing with emotions that they're not aware of, and then those emotions affect how they parent. And so I think those are some of the things you're talking about very often with those mothers.
And tonight's topic is parents who use their children as pawns against each other. But just thinking about that in itself, without looking at the rest of the, what we have ready to talk about, that is sort of like self-serving to do that. And oftentimes the person who's doing it thinks they're doing it to hurt the other person, the other parent, which they may be doing. But more importantly, Jackie, they are hurting the children.
Yeah. And, honestly, I think you give them a little bit too much credit. I don't think they put it under, this is best for my child, or, oh, I'm just doing this because I want to put my child first, but the motives behind it are to hurt the other parent. So they are self-serving, and let's not forget, very destructive.
Yeah. And you find that while parents are going through divorce and are divorced, it's very difficult for the child. And what happens, parents began to sabotage each other, and more importantly, the child. For instance, I have agreed to pick the child up, and I decide that I'm not going to show up. So the child is looking for me. I don't show up. And what it becomes is total manipulation by the parent.
Right. And in those situations, Dr. Miles, every situation is different, and there are a million scenarios out there. But, often you're not showing up because you think you're going to disrupt the parent's schedule.
Yes.
It's time for them to be off. And you're like, oh, no. But it's the child that you're harming. Whether they were just excited about seeing you, whether they're trying to adjust to a schedule that you asked them to adjust to, and then one of the parents doesn't follow through. Again, destructive, and honestly, Dr. Mouse, just downright mean.
It really, Jack, I didn't want to go there, but you're absolutely right. It really is downright mean. Can I give you a case scenario of a case that I actually have? Jackie, whereas the father, the mother and father have divorced. Mother has another spouse at this point. So what the dad does, biological dad does, is tell the mom's new husband that he better not hit the child because, or discipline him because that's his child, which means that he wants to control the household. And now the child knows that. So the child then disrespects the stepdad. You see where I'm going?
Totally.
And it's just continuous. I got 2 or 3 cases.
And guess what it's really havoc for? It's havoc for the child.
It's
havoc for the child. You put that child in a situation where they are constantly trying to manage adult situations.
Jackie, I want to call it emotional abuse so bad.
Call it that. What else would you call it, Dr. Miles?
It's just really emotional abuse.
Remember,
and
you're a clinician. This is your practice, so yes.
It is parents playing games with each other, but it's hurting the child.
Yes.
So neither of them are being, I'm not saying they're not.
They're going to roll with it. They're going to adjust.
But the child thinks oftentimes.
They're often expected, which is another factor. The parent might expect it, but that child is not expecting it.
Jackie, part of the problem is that the children who are going through divorce with the parents' divorce are usually seeking more answers than they get.
Right.
So when they don't get the answers, they're thinking that it's them. And then you decide that you ain't gonna see your dad this weekend because he ain't bringing no money over here.
And this seems obvious from where we sit, although again it should be obvious anywhere. At what point can you separate the child from either parent in terms of that child's self-actualization?
The problem is,
you put my mother down, you're putting me down. You put my father down, you're putting me down. So when is that ever going to be acceptable? When you think you're disappointing my mother by not picking me up, but you actually disappointed me, the child, speaking as from a child's perspective.
The word is, I'm going to use the word disappointed, but I'm going to say the word rejection.
You rejected me.
You're rejecting me.
Yes.
Because of what went on. So, and for rejection to occur, that means I must then believe that I am at fault for what happened.
I'm doing something wrong. I'm not enough.
Yeah. For those who have joined us, we're talking about parents who use their children as pawns. And Jackie, you brought up a very important point that oftentimes these parents don't ever think about the child. They're so bitter at each other. And the child's like a little ping pong ball. Wherever he goes, what do we say? Ping pong, ping pong. Oh, you're going to Dad's this weekend. No, you ain't going to Dad's this weekend. Oh, Dad said you are going. And the child sees all of this.
It's enough, really, Dr. Miles. And, again, it's enough just that the child now has to adjust to two realities. So imagine now that you go and add discord to those realities. It is traumatic to have to go from living with both parents to now visiting, and that's let's hold on to that for a second. Visiting.
Yeah.
The child is wondering, where do I actually belong? I'm visiting my mother. I'm visiting my father. Especially when there's discord.
Yeah, but put yourself in that situation. Jackie, I would be so anxious and so nervous every minute of the day.
And you wonder, do you really have a home?
Right. Not sure what I'm going to get, first of all, because Mom says, I want you to go. Then she says, well, you ain't going because he didn't bring the check. It's just, and he says, well, I ain't bringing the check because you got it. And the child is in the midst of it. The innocent one.
Let's face it, Dr. Miles, on the surface, just discussing this, it seems like something that would never happen. You would never have two people divorce
every day.
And use children as pawns intentionally or otherwise. And again, I'm going to contend that most people don't admit to it. Most people don't own that their behavior, when it is anything other than cordial and cooperative with that other parent, you're using your child as a pawn.
What about, Jackie, during the holidays when there's a tug of war as to where he or she's going to be?
Right.
The tug of war.
And guess what? Those are things that not only should they be pre-planned and arranged, they should be done so in a way that that child feels supported. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone is excited about the holidays and the time they're going to spend together. But if you're spending time, right, causing discord, then you're not creating a holiday experience, a positive one for your children. And Dr. Miles, it's a good point. Holidays can be nightmares for children of divorce. Nightmares.
Yeah, what's so amazing. I do want to sort of give a shout out to our Facebook friends who are on with us. For those who just tuned in with us, you hear Jackie Clenna's voice. You don't see her face. We're still trying to work out the technology to get her to be on live with me on Facebook. We haven't figured that out yet. We have a team working on that, folks. I know somebody's saying, well, it ain't that difficult. Well, you need to tell us then. You need to tell us it's not that difficult. But Jackie Clennis is a co-host to Let's Talk About It, to the Facebook audience who you don't see her, but you do hear her. And for those who are just checking in with us, Jackie, just want to remind them that you're dealing with a topic that's called parents who use their children as pawns. And you're listening to Let's Talk About It. All right? But Jackie, another important thing about this using kids as pawns, and it sounds so trite and it sounds so trifling that parents withhold parents' phone numbers and gift cards, and you can't text them, and you can't do. Now, I understand if somebody's threatening you or somebody's telling their child to hate you. I understand you want to censor that. Trust me, I get it. But just to be trifling.
Right. And you have to be honest with yourself and certainly with your children about if that's exactly what that other parent is doing. Because keeping it real, if that's what the other parent is doing, it's not the child you should be restricting. You should be speaking with your lawyer. You should be speaking with the courts. You know, you don't take this out. You don't fix this through your child. I think you always have to create a positive message, a safe one, but positive for your children if you care about their well-being. This is a parent.
Let's hear about the worst part, though. Now, denying them from the father and mother, you know, and there are some exceptionalities. There are some, if somebody's drug user, if somebody's placing the kid in harm, I get it. Trust me. I trust me.
That's why we put safety, yes.
But check this out. Now, it gets to be real. I'm using those trifling words, trifling. When the parent withholds the grandparents of the spouse they divorced.
Oh, okay, you're right. So you're talking about multi-level trifling and multi-level discord and meanness. Yes. So now you're keeping a child from grandparents who have absolutely nothing to do with it. And again, affecting that child's experience. And Dr. Miles, I don't think people realize how long lasting and how deep these wounds can go.
Runs deep, Jackie. Runs deep. It runs deep.
Yeah. And at some level, and of course, we encourage everyone to look this up for yourselves, but the research says that a lot of these children will find a way to blame themselves when they see two parents fighting, even, you know, in an argument or spat. They wonder what role they played in it. They wonder if you're mad at that person, do you not love me anymore either? Because I'm clearly part of that person. Do I remind you of them? It's very difficult for a child to not be affected when their parents are at odds, especially in their presence, and engaging them in that discord.
But it's also difficult for them to try to understand not just their role, but from a mental health perspective, you know, from a self-esteem perspective, you know, me feeling good about me. How does one feel good about me when doing these kind of things, when these kind of things are going on? And then secondly, the issue is, how do children deal with this developmentally? You know, and we'll talk about that later on, the younger child, you know, the middle child, or the child who's a teenager. They all process it differently because of their own age. They process it differently. But Jackie, these are some of the things that parents do. These are a few of the things. Now, focus a whole lot of other stuff. Now they do a whole lot of things, so we don't have time to go through all of it. But right. The point is that the parent who pimps their child find ways to sabotage relationships.
The most destructive thing you can do. And Dr. Miles, when you were speaking before, I wrote down the word helplessness.
Yeah.
A child must feel completely helpless when you have two adults pulling you back and forth, verbally,
mom and dad,
mentally, emotionally. We're not talking about a physical pull, because that's where I think a lot of people excuse their behavior. Oh, I'm not pulling them. Oh, I don't, you know, physically bar them, but you're doing it emotionally and you're doing it mentally. You know, you're making it difficult. I mean, again, helplessness is how I think many children feel in those situations. You know,
the other thing I think that sometimes, Jackie, some people think that this is a like a legal strategy, but they don't realize they're hurting themselves.
Yeah,
it's trying to get getting the child to resent or hate the other parent.
I've even heard people say that their lawyers advise them that, you know, these sort of things have to be included. You have to go this way. You have to do this if you want. And I'm like, want what? I mean, are we fighting over property? Or are we fighting over children? But it seems that a lot of times, Dr. Miles, the minute people decide to separate, the children become like the couch in the house and everything else.
Exactly.
Who's going to get what?
And that's very unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. What you said was just powerful. So we're gonna split the house up. Let's split the kids too. I'll get one child, put him on the sofa, and you use the love seat. It's just
put him on the list of inventory.
Okay, it angers me.
Yeah.
Because we see the end results. We see the end results.
And you just bring up another good point. Other people see this too. If you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent of the one causing the discord, a sibling, do not sit quiet and say that this is just what they have to do. Do not sit back and empower that behavior with silence or anything else. There is one thing that matters in that separation, one thing that takes precedence over everything else, and that is that child's well-being, not the parent's well-being, not the mother, not the father, but the child.
Can you imagine this? You can't see Aunt Lou because she's now ex-Aunt Lou.
Right.
And we don't deal with his side of the family no more. Or we don't deal with her side of the family no more. We ain't dealing with it.
We know of stories where that's happened and
Yes.
children did not see their other family members for years.
Right.
Years until they became adults. We do know this happens. So again, I'm hoping from this conversation that we're able to have people stop and think. And I believe that there's someone listening who has been in a situation, who knows of those in situations and can identify that these are very real scenarios.
And are people who are the results of those situations.
Yes. Yep.
The result of those situations. So we
Yes.
talked about the issue of divorce. We had a segment before on divorce. So we've covered that. This is not what this topic is about. It really is about parents who use their children as pawns. And Jack and I have sort of like adopted the word who pimp their children. And so we covered things parents do when they try to use their kids as pawns. But and the point is, what's so interesting, use them as pawns, you're supposed to get something out of it. But you really don't, other than hurting the child.
Hurting your child.
Hurting the child.
Yeah.
And then you ask them, why you look so sad every day?
Right.
Why you never smile?
Right. Didn't you just get some new sneakers? What's the matter?
Yeah, new stuff. Did I buy you a PlayStation? I bought all those games for you.
And Dr. Miles is another point. I've heard people say, oh, well, now the child gets two of everything. Oh, they're going to love it. They're going to have this over here, ice cream over here, and ice cream over there. No, I don't think there's any child on the planet who wants material things in lieu of being able to love and freely experience both parents.
Check this out. I know some kids who would love it, but it's also called manipulation. I can get double from both of them because they both fools.
Hello.
Yeah,
and children do that.
And that's what they do.
They do.
And I'm not.
And as they get older, they also resent that was even part of it. And they often grow up and tell you, oh yeah, you bought me plenty of things.
Yeah, I don't mean to insult you when I call you fools. Y'all should know me by now. But the bottom line is that the child's getting over on you.
Yep.
All right.
Because you have guilt because you know you're wrong.
Right.
People should be able to divorce amicably, happily, and have a plan, intentional parental divorcing strategies that put the child's well-being first.
I know the case, Jackie, where the parent told the 15-year-old girl, go and spend time with him and try to spend every dime. Make him take you out. Make him buy all your clothes. Just spend all the time because you're coming back to me.
Yep.
So
in other words, use your father. Use it.
Well, no, what's telling her is to use men.
I was about to get it out. It's teaching her to use men. Now, let's take that a step further, right?
Yep.
If you're using men, right, then you look at them as a way to get something, right? Those men want something in return. Your father hopefully is looking for a father-daughter relationship, and so his guilt allows him to buy you things. But the other men that you're going to do this with, that's not going to be the case. Very unhealthy situation.
Well, all I'm going to say, Jackie, if the parents pimp them, somebody else is going to pimp them too.
Yep. Because you've made them comfortable in those scenarios.
Exactly.
You've made them comfortable being pawns.
Jackie, let's talk briefly about some things that parents can do when a parent is pimping the child or pawning the child.
All right.
I think one thing that's very important, which some people are already doing, is take notes. Yes. The date and the time of the incident did occurring. What occurred? Did the person think they're going to pick the child up and did not show up? Document it.
And
Not
be
only that,
detailed in your documents.
detail, like time, date, and place.
Don't just put March 15 didn't show up.
Right. But the other thing is make sure that you document the child's behavior, whether he was angry, he was disappointed, he became sad and depressed.
And don't ad-lib.
Because what you're doing, you're showing cause and effect. And in court, folk, that holds up. That holds up.
And Dr. Miles, I've had to have this conversation with someone going through custody issues as well. Parents have to remember that when you get in the court, right, they are looking for the best interest of that child.
Of course.
So when you go in there with emotional baggage, right, you are actually hurting yourself because you are showing that you have ulterior motives and that you are actually going at the other parent, not looking out for the child. So it's very important to always try to remove your emotion and just deal with the facts.
That's the most important thing, is deal with what you're observing, not what you're thinking. Nobody asked you about your feelings. What did you observe? Keep your feelings out of it. Look, I always tell people, when you start making decisions based on feeling, you make the wrong decision every time.
Yep.
When you make decisions based upon feelings and emotions, you're going to make the wrong decision every time, because your feelings will cloud your cognition. It clouds your thinking. So next time you get emotional, don't tell me I'm running home to mama. Wrong decision. Don't tell me, oh, I'm divorcing because you're crying. No, let calm down first, and let's think about these things.
Yes.
So Jackie, we're talking about how this, some things that parents can do to document this process. But I think the most important thing in all of it is make sure that we talk about the child's mental health, how that behavior is impacting the child's mental health.
Right. And to do that, Dr. Miles, it's important that parents are observant of their children. Sometimes you can be in the room with your child and not see them. Are you paying attention? Do you step into the room of that teenager, maybe when they're not there, just to observe, to make note? Are you talking with the teachers and educators about what they're seeing when your child is going through a divorce? Because it's important to note behaviors, changes in behavior, and the child may not always express certain things around one parent or the other, but the other adults in their life may be seeing it.
Now, folks, we're talking about divorce, but that ain't really our topic. We're talking about the separation and how it affects children. We're talking about pawning the kids. We're saying, oh, if you do this, you can see them. If you don't do this, you can't see them. If you don't bring a check, you can't see them. Or if you don't do A, B, and C, you can't see them. That's using the child against the other parent. Or I'm sending the child to the house and tell the child, now you let me know who comes over there. Let me know who come over there, and tell me if he takes you over his girlfriend's house, or tell me taking over his boyfriend's house. Who is the person? Write down, get the address for me.
Dr. Miles. It's abuse. And honestly, now the picture in my head right now is the child is that tennis ball in a tennis match. And I want you all to think Wimbledon. They're swinging. And then you
the private investigator. And the private investigator.
Yeah.
The child doing all this right here ain't got nothing to do with it. The child doing all the dirty work.
Right. You should not be asking your child anything about this adult that you are no longer attached to. Right. You shouldn't need any information except information regarding the child's well-being. And then those are conversations, Dr. Miles, shouldn't they be had with the other adult?
Well, I would think so. But guess what? They're not talking. And not to the adult, we're advising, talk to your attorney. Make sure your attorney is aware of everything.
One of the other strategies for managing is stay in touch with your attorney. If you have questions, ask your attorney to ask their attorney. Do not use your children, right, as your legal strategy, as your go-between, or as your attorney.
Jack, we talked about how the impact that has on children, and we're going to talk about it sort of like developmentally, like how it affects a child in grade school, how it affects a young child, and how it affects teenagers. And I think we all agree that it affects them differently because of their development, right?
Right.
But I think we're also agreeing that it does affect them, right? I
think that's undeniable and unavoidable.
Yeah, it affects
under
them.
The best of circumstances. And
so, Jackie, I'm thinking that I think there's some people on tonight, I know somebody who's going through that right now. I think these kind of sessions are geared to empower you to help yourself or to help someone else.
And Dr. Miles, you know, there are a lot of people I realized in dealing with other friends and family, they don't actually know what healthy separation looks like. They don't actually realize that if there's too much involvement from the legal industry, then that's one sign that you guys aren't really handling it well. When you have to keep going back to court to resolve issues of child custody and welfare, it's drama. And keep in mind that every time you walk into that court, whether that child is walking with you or not, you're kind of dragging them along beside you, because every time their life could change.
I'm not sure I shared this with y'all, but I'm actually sometimes called in to be an expert, give expert testimony in foster care about terminating parental rights of a parent. And terminating parental rights mean that the parent is no longer legally the guardian, and the child is actually issued a new birth certificate with the new birth parent's name on it.
I didn't know that.
I'm sorry, not the birth parent, the new guardian. For instance, in adoptions, what happens is that the child is actually issued a new birth certificate, and that parent's name is erased. And so I'm just saying that parents, it's kind of like, but that's different. The parents are giving a whole lot of opportunity to get it right. Are you with me? But just think about in these kind of cases, like when divorce is happening. How would you feel if the judge said, hey, he wouldn't though, but say, let me just terminate your parental rights because y'all been pawning the child. You know, you got to think about that.
Now your child, right. And another thing people don't realize, when that court appoints a guardian, even when you still have parental rights, you're now visiting your child. Your child becomes a ward of the state, so to speak, and you have to get permission from the state to spend time with your child.
Look, I just say that make sure that you are not using your children as pawns. If you have children who are grown children who are going through this year, make sure you tell them that Dr. Miles said to him, it's kind of like abuse. It's mental abuse when you use your children as pawns. I want to move on to talk about the impact on children. But for those who are just coming in, you are on Instagram, let's talk about it, and Facebook Live, let's talk about it. And our discussion tonight is parents who use their children as pawns. Now, I ain't being judgmental. I just said trifling. That's all. I said trifling.
So that's judgmental, and it is trifling. And unfortunately, it's very common. You know,
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask both audiences to just kind of acknowledge if this is, relevant in their circles, in their communities. Are these scenarios that you've seen? Are you hearing things that sound familiar? And are you hearing some strategies to help mitigate? But again, so many of our workshops are about causing a consciousness and a thought to behavior and how it affects children.
Well, Jackie, as they're doing that, I'm going to tell you, I see the kids in therapy. So young children often struggle to understand why they must go between two homes. They don't understand why they go to dad's home and mom. The question they have is, why y'all can't just be together?
Yeah.
Why
can't you just get along?
And the young child keeps asking, well, I don't want to go to you. I want y'all back together. And what's sad about it is many parents don't communicate to their children why that's not going to happen. However, Dad and I still love you. Our mom and I still love you. It doesn't change how we feel about you. Are you with me?
And when that child knows that both parents are well, then they're more likely to also be well.
But check it
helps them deal with the adjustment.
The young child also moves forward because of development, thinking that because the two parents are separated, he or she's going to lose one of them. Lose could mean not ever see them again. Lose could mean death. I mean, just think about that.
Right. What the children are going through, it's trauma. It's another type of trauma.
Exactly. Now, the thing about kids in grade school, they may worry that the divorce is their fault.
Mm-hmm.
And they fear if they misbehave, or they may assume they didn't do something wrong. So the point is that kids in grade school think that, well, guess what? If I misbehave, maybe I'll be divorced too.
Maybe it's why, my dad is tired of my mom, or my mom is tired of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important, Dr. Miles, to mention, don't think that, my child's not going to think that because we've never said that. It's not about what you're saying. It's about the divorce in and of itself and what children may naturally think about why it's happening.
And Jackie, of course, teenagers process it so much differently. They become very angry, and they may blame one parent for the dissolution of the marriage, or they may resent one of both parents for the upheaval in the family. And Jackie, that's when drugs come into it. And that's when they start seeking these other people to meet their emotional needs.
And we've seen a lot of that. We see
it
very
over
scenario.
And over and over. But Jackie, yes, our audience says do something. They didn't do it yet. Give us some feedback. Is this relevant to you? Does this make sense to you? Or
do you know of any
people
who've ever divorced?
Let me tell you what our viewers are doing. They are fussing about the kids doing Zoom. They done turned us on and went and started cooking and feeding children. And I know what's going on. Hey,
Miles, they're just on but not listening. I think you're right.
Parents, stop playing games with a turn that PlayStation off and zoom in on us. So give us some feedback.
How about an easier question? Any of our parents divorced? Had parents who divorced? Have siblings divorced? Anyone ever? I mean, I don't know, Dr. Miles. I'm starting to feel like divorce is not something that's common, although we know it is.
Yeah. So our Facebook Live folk, we're ready to hear from you. Talk to us about something if this is relevant to you. But we know it's relevant because I know it's relevant because I see the kids in therapy
all the time.
I'm seeing them in therapy.
Miles, there's another term that comes up, and we're gonna hope that they will start to comment. But another term that comes up when this gets really deep and goes without being treated, which is narcissism.
Narcissism. Jackie, I mean, I can't say there's not a better word. I'm saying that I'm glad you brought that up. Narcissism. And Jackie, we know what it means. But Jackie, what does that mean when it comes to me and children? You know, if I'm a narcissist,
right. And it means that at all costs, you know, people are putting themselves first. And now at this point, once it becomes narcissistic or falls into that category, then you know you're putting your needs before the needs of your children. And you're actively using your children to make yourself feel good, to accomplish whatever objectives you're trying to accomplish with the other parent. You are literally pimping and using your children for your own benefit.
And the strong word is the emotional abuse by a narcissistic is pervasive and insidious. So
you're right.
Check it is abuse. Now think about this. The question is, how can a child live with a narcissistic parent? In other words, I only care about me. I only care about everything I receive from it. Are you with me?
And very often yes, I am. Very often those parents can come across charming. You know, they know how to turn on the charm and how to appear to be what they need to be.
Passive aggressive.
But those children get to see the real person because they expose themselves, you know, emotionally and otherwise.
But Jackie, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say in those settings or one-on-one with their children.
Narcissistic parents will use any means to gain control of a situation or to make themselves look better.
Mm-hmm. Look better. And that's the key too. It's not even that they feel better. As long as it looks like they're winning, as long as it looks like things are in their favor, which also means, Dr. Miles, they have an extreme fear of not looking that way. And that's when even more intense behavior can kick in.
Elise says, narcissistic parents create people-pleaser children. That's dangerous, isn't it?
In this world, extremely.
People-pleaser children. In other words, the child says, well, guess what? That's true, though. Because guess what? I got to please dad.
Right. Because they have to please
mom.
That parent in order to maintain peace.
But guess what? The child receives no pleasure in it.
Right.
So the child becomes the victim.
Yep.
Right. But since you brought, I didn't bring it up, Jackie. You brought the word narcissistic. I didn't bring it up. You're the one going to say that.
It's reality in these divorce scenarios.
But Jackie, as we look at the data on children from parents who are divorcing and parents who use their children as pawns, narcissism comes up a lot, though. And I was surprised by it. Narcissistic parenting comes up a lot. And it says that narcissistic parents also distort reality.
And here's another chilling fact.
In other words, Jackie, in other words, they lie a lot.
Here's another chilling fact, though. Once divorce proceedings begin, the narcissist's abuse will likely escalate. So that is frightening.
Yeah.
Children become perfect pawns for narcissistic parents to use against their spouses. Identifying how parents abuse their children is the first step to devising strategies to minimize abuse. So again, and this again is not limited now to the two people in the divorce. It's about extended families, educators, neighbors, community. Identifying the behavior is the first step to I'm going to call it rescuing a child.
You know, what's so amazing to me, though, is that some viewers just came on. We're talking about parents who use their children as pawns against each other. And we're talking about narcissistic parents now. This is just only one part of it, but it's a big part of it. And we're talking about narcissistic parents are parents who, again, only care about their own feelings, Jackie. They create false scenarios. They are people who are self-serving. And they'll do anything under the guise of treating someone right. The someone is a child.
And keep in mind, it's probably often that behavior that caused the separation.
Right.
Right. We know of people who behave in very selfish manners and expect their partners to just kind of, evolve or exist around them. And so what we're saying here is that this is signs and behaviors that those around children can begin to observe and make note of early on in the process. As a matter of fact, before divorces take place.
We're gonna stay on this because I think that we're onto something. We're talking about narcissistic parents, and we're talking about narcissistic parents who are the ones who pawn their children. But what's so amazing is that narcissistic parents, ready for this one? Also teach their children to lie and spy on the partner.
And, I want people now to think of young children, because the first thought may be, well, an older child, is going to know. Think of young children. This can happen with a 4-year-old. Now, I want you to be sure to tell, daddy what mommy's doing. I want you to be sure to tell mommy where you and daddy went, just as nice in your little kindergarten voice.
Jackie, it's horrible. I'm telling you why it's horrible. Because this brings up another case to me where the parent, all kids now have the cell phones, right?
Of course. Unfortunately,
so,
yes.
The parent tells the child how to work the cell phone to take pictures without anybody knowing.
Wow.
So take the pictures of him when he's with his girlfriend or wherever they are. Record them without them knowing it. Are you with me? Then she gathers that to use it in court. Now I'm saying in my case, it is a female that's doing this, but men can do the same thing.
Absolutely. And see, that connects with what we talked about earlier, about how the effects of this actually do last the rest of their lives. So now you're creating a young person, male or female, who doesn't trust partners, right? They don't trust spouses or partners or girlfriends or boyfriends. And again, it doesn't have to be about something that happened to them, but something they simply grew up in.
Exactly.
And that's how that cycle continues.
We talked about how we didn't call it narcissism before, but that's what it is. How the narcissistic parent who is going through the divorce will also use the child to be able to control the household where he resides.
Yes.
Are you with me? For instance, you ain't have to listen to him. He's not your daddy. I'm your daddy. And then the child hears the the divorced parent, talk to the mom and tell her in front of the child, that ain't his dad. Now, if something happens, I'm saying,
I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You all better do this and you all better do that. Yeah. Highly damaging.
This is what we have.
And a lot of times when these children get older and they're expressing things and you don't know what's going on, these are things that have been put in place a long time ago.
Check, Elise has something on here. You want to read that?
Let me see if I see Elise's comments. No, I don't see Elise's comments.
I'm sorry. It says, and the young person either goes on mimicking what they have learned or going through years of unlearning what they saw. Exactly. And going through years of unlearning what they saw, it sounds like therapy to me. It sounds like therapy. And we do recommend that. But, Jack, I want to expand this conversation to a little bit broader. So what I'm hearing then with the parent who pawns the child, he or she is creating mental health conditions which can affect the child long term and cause the child's life really to be ruined until therapy occurs.
Yep. And imagine this starting to happen at early ages, 3, 4, and 5, because you have a parent who is not aware or is aware that they are using you, quite frankly, for a very adult scenario, experiences, and adult issues, not allowing the child to be a child.
But you know, one thing you say kind of often, and I kind of like sometimes don't buy into it, but it's real. When Jackie says oftentimes, sometimes the parents don't know it. I said, yes, they do know it. But she says, sometimes they don't know it. And you're absolutely right. In therapy, Jackie, when I bring this to a parent's attention, they are just shocked. They are not aware they're doing this kind of harm to their children because they think they're protecting. But they made the child a co-conspirator.
Yeah.
They made the child a co-conspirator.
Exactly. And
I guess
again,
it's daddy.
you rob that child of a childhood. A child has no role taking pictures for you, bringing back verbal reports for you. A child should be able to go and enjoy a parent and have a good time. And if any questions come out of that, it should be questions about the child's well-being. And of course, that's when you can discover if there are challenges that need to be addressed.
Well, I think, Jackie, versus being narcissistic, it should be more so that I'm supportive. Yeah, I'm aware that my child is hurting and he or she does not know how to show their hurt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about stuff. I'm going to bring up things. Dad and I are okay. Dad and I, we decided that we're not good together.
Right. This is the best thing for us.
We're better apart, and we can love you better apart.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to explain that to them. But the problem with many of these cases is that everybody's so emotional.
Well, Dr. Miles, because as we talk about often, everyone who is an adult in age is not an adult in emotion and in maturity.
Exactly. And we talked about that in many of our sessions. We've done about 50 or 60 of these sessions. And we talked about how children, all behaviors are learned, first of all, and that oftentimes I tell my clients, I said, you have a child in therapy, but not only does a parent need to be in therapy, I've convinced the mother to put everyone in the house in therapy. Because if one child is hurt, guess what? Everybody's hurt.
Yes.
If mom is hurt in the house,
therapists will do. They will tell you there must be family sessions. We have to get the family dynamic to even treat one person.
Yeah. If mom is going through stuff, mom affects everybody. If dad is going through something, dad affects everybody. If children are going through anything, it affects everyone in the household. So we talked a lot about parents pimping their children, and we talked about them pawning their children. We talked about the role of the adults in this process, the role of the adults in this process, and the impact.
Mean all adults.
I'm sorry?
And we meant all adults, not just
all adults.
Parents.
Exactly. And just some highlighters. We talked about how some parents use their kids as pawns by sabotaging situations. Not picking the child up when they're supposed to pick the child up, not committing to the promises they made, not allowing the child to see the grandmother because they're exes, not allowing the child to see the aunts and the relatives of the ex because your ex-husband, so your ex-dad and your ex-uncle, no dealing with those people.
Right. Look,
the situation.
Look, we divorced them.
Right. Exactly. When there's only 2 folk divorced now.
Right. We divorced them.
But we divorced them.
Don't see them anymore. Horrible.
We also gave some ideas, Jackie, of how to handle situations when parents are using their kids as pawns. We talked about how be the note taker, document what you're seeing.
And I want to add to that one that we didn't touch on.
Right.
Become very in tune with your own feelings. Make sure you are handling it objectively. And if you have some angers and maybe you've done a few of these things unintentionally, not in me, you just said, hey, just let me know, who you're around or things like that. First, become aware of your feelings and how you are interacting with your child. And then begin to document the things that are of concern. But as you pointed out, without emotion.
Yeah, one of our viewers on Instagram has requested to go online with me, but they haven't shown me how to do this yet, so I can't do it. So I'll get you the next time. But I'm glad you want to share in the comments. You can also type in the comment sections if you so choose, and we'll be more than happy to read what you've said. So Jackie, we also covered the impact on children, the mental health issues that affects children from
lifelong mental health
yeah.
issues, the lifelong
young children,
intercommunicational issues, the lifelong relationship issues.
Right.
This stuff doesn't just magically disappear at a certain stage.
We talked about it for young children, grade school children, and teenagers. And so, folks, everyone is impacted by it. Everyone is impacted by it. I just lost my my Facebook live stream group, so I'm going to now focus on the Instagram. I don't know what happened, but I lost it.
Okay.
So, at any rate, Jack, we're going to continue on. I want to say that we have, we're almost at close. I mean, Elise says they have to feel comfortable to talk to the parent without manipulation. It said, talk to your children. She said they have to feel comfortable in talking to the parent without manipulation, and vice versa. The parent has to feel comfortable in talking to her children without manipulating them. So it's just really, and she says everybody plays a role. Everyone does play a role, but the leaders in that family, the parents, take the responsibility. They're responsible for the child's safety and their mental health. Safety and mental health. All right. So I really hope, Jackie, that we were of help to some people here tonight, who may have heard our broadcast. It's really about parents upon their children.
Always about awareness. We just maybe haven't thought about it before. Maybe we accept it all as normal. And I do think that's a part, Dr. Miles. We look at it so prevalent that we just say it's normal. But we want to declare that it is not normal, that it is not healthy. And we hope that our listeners will share this with others where they see this behavior, that you'll start to observe children who may come from separated families, and just be more aware. Again, the focus is on children.
Yeah, Joyce said parents have to really listen with feedback to the children. And that's so important. Oftentimes during these divorces and separations, parents get so caught up in their feelings, they're not listening to anybody.
Including themselves.
Including themselves. They are thriving off of, I'm angry, disappointed, and I'm hurt.
Absolutely.
Elise says, once you know better, you do better. It just takes the willingness to learn and act on it. Elise, I'm going to change that. I'm going to say, once you know better, you ought to do better. Because some people don't do better.
And it takes a willingness to want your child to be healthy, to want them to have something different and better than what you had.
Hey, Jackie, our time is running out.
Pass it on.
Our time is running out. I do want to remind people next week that June 1st is our giving campaign, but we need your help. Please donate to us. We don't ask you for anything throughout the entire year. The month of June is our givings month. Go to our website, make a donation to us. Our donations are tax deductible, and which means that you're able to file on your taxes and say you gave to a not-for-profit. So listen, Jackie, this has been great. I want you to have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Jackie, you want to say some closing words?
Thank you. Again, a wonderful topic. I feel like we covered a lot of good ground. I want to also encourage you to have a happy Memorial and safe Memorial Day weekend. I am. Hey, folks, we're off next week because we finished an entire series, which is 4 weeks. We'll miss you. We're off next week. We're starting up the next week. So please check your emails and check all of your Facebook Lives and your Instagrams. We have plenty of announcements coming out. Hey, don't forget to give. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Good night, everyone.